second word this morning comes immediately after the first word that we just heard a few moments ago, still in the Gospel according to Luke in the 23rd chapter. Listen now. One of the criminals who were hanged there railed at him, saying, "Are you not the Christ? Save yourself and us." But the other rebuked him, saying, "Do you not fear God, since you are under the same sentence of condemnation? And we indeed justly, for we are receiving the due reward for our deeds, but this man has done nothing wrong." And he said, "Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom." And Jesus said to him, "Truly, I say to you, today you will be with me in paradise." Two criminals were crucified with Jesus that day, one on the left, one on the right. We don't know their names. We don't know their crimes. We know that by their own confession that they are guilty and they deserve their punishment. One of them looks over at the man hanging between them and says, "Are you not the Christ? Save yourself then and us." These are some of the concluding moments of Jesus' life and ministry. In addition to letting us know what kind of man this was, the words of this dying criminal bring us back to the moments earlier in Jesus' ministry. Remember that before Jesus began his public ministry, he was way back in the early part of all the Gospels in the wilderness for 40 days, where he was tempted by the devil. And remember the tempter's words, "If you are the Son of God, turn this stone into bread. If you are the Son of God, throw yourself down. If you are the Son of God." 3 times. Here at the end of his ministry, he hears the same words again, 3 times. The first occurs the passage immediately before tonight, when one of the leaders of the synagogue says, "If he is the Christ of God, the chosen one, then let him save himself." Then the Roman soldiers, "If you are the King of the Jews, save yourself." And the third one, from one of these crucified criminals, "Are you not the Christ? Save yourself then and us." Jesus begins and ends his ministry with the challenge to prove who he is. And in his death on the cross, Jesus concludes his ministry as he began it, on behalf of and associating with the lost. "I have come to seek the lost," he said, and to one of those hanging next to him, he says, "Today you will be with me in paradise." The second criminal, the one to whom Jesus extends this remarkable act of mercy, the one tradition has come to call the penitent sinner, speaks not to Jesus first, but to his fellow criminal. And he says, "Don't you fear God? You and I are guilty of our crimes and deserve our punishment, but this man has done nothing wrong." And the phrase "has done nothing wrong" literally means has done nothing out of place. Jesus has not departed from his path in life. He has been true to God, true to his own self, and as such is innocent. But you and I are not so innocent. Our crime is that we have not been true to our identity. We have wandered from our path. We have forgotten and denied who we are. We have followed other paths and other leaders who would claim our allegiance. In an effort to build our own self-esteem up, we have brought others down. We have let our culture define us. And more we are pressured to see the cross and the flag as having equal claims on our loyalty, and we cannot serve 2 lords. The second criminal knew this. He knew on his deathbed, even if he did not know beforehand, who this Jesus was and what his relationship was to him. He knew, as you and I so often forget, that the only way to approach the cross of Jesus is with open and empty hands. Nothing to offer in exchange for a place in God's kingdom. Nothing to offer as proof of our worthiness. The words of this penitent sinner were simple. Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom. Remember me. It's not the first time in Scripture we heard that plea. After Joseph had interpreted a dream of Pharaoh's cupbearer, he said, remember me when it is well with you. Remember me, Hannah prayed to God, and God did, giving her a child. Remember me, prayed Nehemiah on more than one occasion, and God did. Remember me, wrote the psalmist. According to thy steadfast love, remember me for thy goodness' sake. Remember me in prayer, we say to one another. Keep me in your thoughts and prayers. I will remember you. It's a sign, it's a recognition of our own vulnerability. A recognition of the truth that you and I cannot make it on our own, that we need to let go of our defenses, let go of our feeble attempts to prove ourselves before God and one another. And Jesus' response to the man, to his simple request, is far more than the thief asked for. Today, not just will I remember you, but today you will be with me in paradise. Not only in some unforeseen and unforeseeable future, not only in the sweet by and by, but today. Today. On the day you and I return to the path God has placed us on the day we let go of our attempts to prove ourselves, on the day that you and I let go of all other identities than the one given to us by God. If we hear correctly the words from this sinner's mouth, we are moved to recognize that before an innocent and suffering Christ, we too are guilty and stand in need of God's mercy. So with open hands, we join this penitent sinner in prayer, asking only that we be remembered. One of my colleagues tells of the time that his mother died. And my friend's wife said, all the really interesting people who you really enjoy aren't here anymore. And then he went on to say that dying doesn't seem so bad when you consider who's up there with God. If you have ever lost someone you love, one of the really interesting people, then you know there is truth in what this person said. But when we look back on those really interesting people, a major part of the reason they were so interesting is that they had learned to let go, like the thief on the cross. All we have to do is fall back on the grace of God and the assurance offered to all of us penitent sinners that He will not let us go. Open your hands. Open your hearts, and by the grace of God, you may very well hear Him say to you, today you will be with me in paradise. Thanks be to God. Amen.